Good evening and welcome back to Diversity in Central Ohio. We're here live at COSI this evening talking about a painful subject, the Holocaust. We're talking both about the Holocaust remembrance ceremonies that will be taking place throughout Columbus in April, particularly the mayor's annual event, which will be taking place April 20th, which is a Friday at 12 noon in the City Council chambers. We invite you all to attend. But we also want to talk a little bit about Holocaust education, and that's the panel that we will have this segment. We have some very distinguished guests with us, and I'm going to introduce them to you now. We have Adam Reese with us. Adam, how are you?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
Good. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Adam.
I'm the Director of Marketing at the Columbus Jewish Federation. I've been doing that for 6 years now. I also have my own production company, CAM Studios, and also work with a lot of Jewish organizations in Central Ohio.
All right. And Cheryl Dritz, how about introducing yourself?
I'm with the Columbus Jewish Federation, and I'm a program coordinator for adult Jewish learning, just adult learning, and I work with the Holocaust Education Committee, which provides educational materials to public schools throughout the area to help teach Holocaust intolerance and what has gone on in the past.
Wonderful. And we'll talk more about how folks can access that. And we have the Reverend Ward, also known as Skip Cornett. Welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Right, Lutheran pastor. I am the special consultant for Jewish Christian affairs at Trinity Lutheran Seminary. I'm in that new role now because I am effectively retired from there, but I've been doing Jewish Christian relations, Holocaust education for the last 12 years, really liaison to the Jewish community on behalf of the seminary. And it's been really a special privilege and an opportunity. I've learned a tremendous amount, and I've been doing a lot of teaching as a result of that.
You've also been a regular participant in our programming through the years.
Right. It's been a collaboration, a really intense collaboration over the last 12 years or so.
Wonderful.
Your notes were so interesting, and also a minister, I know when you say you're semi-retired,
right,
part-time pastor, I said, what is that,
right,
a part-time pastor?
I also work in a congregation in Delaware, Ohio, so interim pastor. So.
A busy retirement.
Right, yeah.
All right. Well, you know, I failed to ask our guest on the first segment, but I want to make sure we do. One of our hallmarks of our program is asking each of our guests, what does diversity mean to them? And why don't we just go right down the line? Adam, we'll start with you.
Diversity means so many things, and I think being at COSI today in this race exhibit is a perfect time to talk about lessons of tolerance and the Holocaust and diversity. Genocide is still happening today, and a lot of it is because of bigotry or racism, and to end that bigotry is to accept all races and to understand that diversity. And I believe we can get there as a people, and hopefully one day we will.
Great, thank you, thank you. Cheryl, same question. What does diversity mean to you?
Diversity to me means that it's a reflection of our society. So whether it's race or gender, ethnic background, religious background, that you've got a mix. And we all mix together, we live together, we're all part of a society. So I think in terms of being a program coordinator, when I think of diversity, I think you need to be inclusive of all of those factors and to keep in mind that you're not just reflecting yourself, you're reflecting everybody. And everybody doesn't look like you or sound like you or have your same background, that we're all a little bit different, but yet we're all really the same.
Very nice, very nice. Skip, last but certainly not least, what does diversity mean to you?
Multiplicity of people, multiplicity of cultures, languages, ways of doing things, enclaves of people, and a multiplicity of ideas. Sometimes we get into great conflict over ideas, but I especially appreciate that Adam brought up genocide. Genocide is still going on, and that those differences often create the problem. Those are the reasons for genocide to take place. But my emphasis has always been on the importance of learning to cross boundaries and to meet other people where they are and to try to, more than tolerance. Tolerance is fine, but I think the really important word is appreciation, learning to appreciate and to value the people of other cultures and other backgrounds, other ethnic groups and so forth.
Great insight.
Well, that's a nice pickup because, you know, moving beyond just tolerance, because that idea of tolerance is you just kind of put up with something, but
right, exactly,
getting into a deeper level.
Right.
So, wow, you have a book there. What's this book that you have here? I think the question for you to talk about a little bit here is this education process that you dedicated your life to. You're working in it now, trying to let people know. What is it that who do we need to reach? I guess is the question. Who do we need to reach, and what are the kind of methods? I heard you say adult learners, adult education, and who is it that we need to reach, and what are the techniques we need to reach them to talk about this story?
Specifically, Holocaust education in Central Ohio, we have a ton of resources, ranging resources for children to adults. As Neal mentioned when we opened the segment, we have an event coming up. The mayor's, I think it's the 27th annual City of Columbus Holocaust Remembrance. So for 27 years, the mayor has been promoting it. On Wednesday of that week, on Tuesday of that week, on the 17th, the governor's 32nd annual event is happening. Also, Thursday of that week, on the 19th in the evening, the Board of Rabbis are having their Holocaust event. So that's just 3 large events to reach everybody. Included, we have 2 websites. One website that speaks to lessons for teachers. It's the HolocaustEducationColumbus.org website. That website provides lesson plans, provides maps of different concentration camps and areas that were ravaged during the Holocaust. Provides a number of resources for anybody interested in learning about the Holocaust. And we have a secondary website that we implemented last year, HolocaustEducationVideo.org, and that has 55 local survivors telling their story in entirety. Some of them range up to 2 hours just talking about their experience firsthand participating in the Holocaust. That could be used to teach children.
It becomes more valuable every year, that compilation.
As we have less survivors, absolutely.
Yes.
And these are just some of the resources. There's trunks, books.
Yeah, we've got like a cooler size, trunks of materials that are available to any middle school. They're aimed at middle school and high school teachers that have artifacts. They have the passports that Jews had to carry during World War II. It's got replicas of the uniforms, the yellow star Judah that Jews had to wear. It's got DVDs. It's got maps, actual pictures of things that were going on during World War II. To any teacher in Central Ohio can just call us up and ask for it, and I have it delivered to the school, and they have the use of it for 3 or 4 weeks. We also have a genocide trunk. As you said, that's another story that's going on, and it is part of lessons. My focus is on the schools, middle school to high school, and that's what I really try to get to, because if we can reach our students and our kids at that age and let them know what's happening, I think it's very important to carry on with them. So it's available to anyone. Plus we have a speakers bureau. And it's getting a little bit smaller, but we have our survivors and local survivors who will go to schools, or they went to, I know they were at a church at Hilltop at an after-school program. They've talked to high school classes, middle school classes. Teachers will invite them in, and they'll tell their story. They were at Bexley Methodist Church. I mean, if you have a group that's interested, we can provide, we'll try our best to provide a speaker to come out and talk, and the kids really like this. They have tons of questions after they hear these stories.
For people, sir, who are interested in the trunk or the Speakers Bureau, how do they get a hold of you?
They can just call me at the Columbus Jewish Federation office. My number is 559-3226.
And are there fees associated with that?
No fees. There are no fees associated for the speaker, for use of the materials, for any of the lesson plans. Anything is available to you at no cost.
Wonderful.
Now, Cheryl, I also noticed in your materials that there are interfaith conversations going on with teens.
Right.
And
we have that.
I want to hear more about that. That is a very interesting development.
It is. It is. We started last summer with, it was with Trinity Lutheran Seminary and the Noor Islamic Center on the north side and the Columbus Jewish Federation. and we brought together high school teenagers. We didn't want college, we wanted to be high school age. So they were 16, 17 years old, and it was 3 evenings in the summer. Once we met at a synagogue, one night we met at the seminary, and one night we met at the Noor Islamic Center. They each toured the different religious institutions. They had a chance to interface with each other. They had a great dialogue going on. And so that's going to be coming up again this summer. That last year was the first year. And we have a young adult called Shalom Salam. That's a group of young adults in their 20s who are meeting once a month, I believe it is, just to get to know one another, to have a conversation. And I'm doing more work with the interfaith community because I think that's also is important. Until we understand each other and know one another, it's real easy to hate someone, call someone names, say you don't want to do anything with them if you don't know that person. And then when you get to sit down and talk to them, it was so great to see these teenagers. They formed a Facebook group and they exchanged emails, and they were just so excited to talk to one another.
They didn't want to go home.
They didn't. Skip was there. They just kept going.
Can I use this as an opportunity to throw in about the Interfaith Association of Central Ohio? We're really privileged to have this very significant organization, the IACO, that's been around here for about 22 years now. We have probably 65,000 Muslims living in Central Ohio, 23,000 Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, just a whole Buddhist, a whole range of groups here. It's really a diverse community, and the Interfaith Association of Central Ohio has been working on providing opportunities for these groups to come together. Right now I'm chairing the education committee, and we're doing book study groups. The last book study group we did was on the Holocaust, and it was very successful. We're doing one on Buddhism coming up in April. So these are important kinds of opportunities, I think, to cross boundaries and help people get to know each other.
In your materials, you talked about this community of moral deliberation.
Yeah.
Talking about faith communities and that. What is that? What community of moral deliberation?
Well, that's an expression that comes out of one of our church's social statements, the social statement on church and society. And I picked up on that theme, the church as a community of moral deliberation and the faith community as a community of moral deliberation. And now today, the interfaith community, because we have especially the Abrahamic traditions, we have so much in common. We have this opportunity to cross these boundaries and to talk to one another and find our common ground and lift up our differences too and learn from each other. I think that's really, really important. And that becomes, and also learn to talk about the difficult issues as part of that community of moral deliberation. We've got that potential, I think, here in Central Ohio.
And every November, the Interfaith Association, at least for the past couple, has been partnering with the Federation to put on a Kristallnacht event. Mm-hmm. And I know Skip is already working on next year's Kristallnacht event, where we bring in an exciting speaker to talk about these, understanding other.
Well, I can make a pitch for that right now. Rabbi Stephen Jacobs is coming from the University of Alabama. He holds an endowed chair there. And I studied with Stephen Jacobs at the U.S. Holocaust Museum about 6 or 8 years ago. We were in a class together for a week. And I remembered him because he's very funny and engaging and just really, really profound in the stuff that he does. But he is the person who has gathered all the resources of Raphael Lemkin. Raphael Lemkin is the person who coined the expression genocide. And he was the one who did all the studies on that. So he teaches the Holocaust and genocide studies, and among other things, at the University of Alabama. So we have scheduled him as a scholar in residence, November the 8th to the 11th, I think. He's going to be here for 4 days with us.
So this is a joint effort of the IACO and the Jewish
Interfaith
Federation.
Association, Jewish Federation, and it's Trinity Lutheran Seminary actually is the initiator of it because of our Holocaust memorial that we have there. The Promise for Life Holocaust Memorial.
Well, tell us about that memorial.
That is, it's a memorial that was put up in place in 1999, May of 1999. Alfred Tibor was the sculptor who created it. It came out of a class, actually, on the church and the Holocaust that was conducted. He came as a visitor, and one thing went to another, led to another, and they ended up walking to the president's office and said, "You're a sculptor and you're a Holocaust survivor. Let's do something on campus." And we spent probably 2 years collecting support, gathering support, collecting money, and getting people to contribute to it as a $250,000 project. And the understanding was it's not to be a sculpture simply on campus, but a living memorial, which means programming goes along with it. And that's how we got involved in this, and we've been doing it for quite a long time now. So.
And in fact, Mr. Tieborg, someone who instrumental in our city observances of Yom HaShoah. He was one of the people who really brought the energy to have that happen, and we honored him 2 years ago for the 25th anniversary. We kind of did a retrospective of some of his work in life. And even now, it's part of the observance. Anyone want to talk about that, the City Hall observance, and how that ties to another statue by Mr. Tieborg?
So every year, after the speaker concludes and the mayor finishes with the ceremony, everybody walks out to the Freedom Statue and drops a flower. And the statue was created by Mr. Tieborg, and it's been a tradition probably as long as the observance has been going on. And rain or shine, it's a beautiful thing to see. And I know that CTV videotapes that every year and runs it, and so it's a great tribute to the survivors, which we still have over 200 survivors in our central Ohio area, which is very important to recognize. So,
as we said, that number does get smaller every year, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back also just for a second to the idea of Holocaust education, the importance of it. You know, we have a pretty good life here for the most part, despite some differences and economic troubles and so forth. We have a pretty good life. We get along pretty well. And that's why Holocaust education is so important, because it's so unbelievable. And it's so important to educate those younger generations, to let them know this is what happened. And even with older people. I'm doing a series right now in the congregation I'm working in Delaware using Man's Search for Meaning from Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor. I'm doing it each Wednesday night. And the stuff that we read together and talk about, it's quite surprising. People don't know that until you kind of put it before them and say, here's what happened. And here's why we have to be concerned about the future.
Well, and let me bring this up, and it's a painful topic, but there's people in the community who deny this has ever happened.
Sure.
What's our response to that? I mean, here's all of you talking about it. We had the previous panel with talking about their parents' stories and what they went through. How do we deal with people who say this didn't even happen? This was a myth.
Well, I think we counter that with the narrative that we have, which is that it happened, and here's why it's important for us to talk about it. We just simply have to continue to educate. I think that's a very small minority, and we don't want them to win the communications game.
Right, right.
That's why we have the testimonies online, and that's why we have to promote it and continue to reach out to the schools. And that's why I think not just the older, adults, but the sooner we can start talking about it and make sure it is part of their lessons in history in World War II, because it is. It is so hard to believe that man could do that to another man. It really has to be told.
On the first panel,
when you hear those stories,
people were living their life just like normal, and very engaged and very involved in the whole community, making things happen, and just in a relatively short time. So they didn't even believe it.
Right.
It looks like some of the people that, and I feel for them, because here you think everything's going fine. They thought they were living a pretty good life, like you just said, we're living now. But something changed, and that's just something that we have to understand better, that how, this is not just something that happened in a small place. When I saw the maps of the camps, were all over Europe.
Yeah.
So this was happening all over the whole European continent.
Why it's so important to educate. We have had the slogan for the past number of years, we remember, because without remembering, who knows when this could happen again, as it happens in areas that haven't potentially educated themselves about this. To go to the Holocaust denier, I know Ohio State University Hillel is having a program upcoming in the next few weeks where they're inviting Deborah Lipstadt, who is a famous author, Emory professor that went to court against a Holocaust denier in England. And
who sued her.
Absolutely. So we are, there's the education out there for the next generation, and I don't think you can deny that even people are denying it nowadays. That's where it's come. You have to have these programs that educate that, you're going to have this resistance. And my grandparents were survivors, so I saw it firsthand. I've seen it. The panel ahead of us, we we know about it. We have all the testimonials, so it's important that we must remember.
And we also know it's happening in Sudan. We know it happened in Rwanda abruptly.
Yes.
Again, a place that had a pretty good life, and all of a sudden these factions who had long been in contention with one another simply rose up against each other. But the other point that I brought up in my material that I wrote for you was about the rise of hate groups.
Yes.
In this country. There's 30-some identified in central Ohio, right, around Ohio, by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they said there's been a dramatic increase in hate groups in the last 5-6 years or so, and they're very concerned.
And this region was already pretty high in the past. Indiana, Ohio, this region, there are a lot of, it was turning toward more religious groups doing hate. So somehow this piece about our religions and our faith, and as Christians, we haven't been the best.
Right.
Christians have not done a great job on understanding this issue.
Yeah.
And I think it does say that we need to do more work with not just Christians, but everybody to understand this.
Well, and that was something I wanted to bring out and ask. And, people will say this was 70, 80 years ago. People will say, this affected Jews and gypsies and homosexuals, and I'm not any of those things. Why is this story important to me? What's our response to that? I mean, Skip, I guess I'm looking at you because, you're a Lutheran clergy, and yet you devote so much of your time and energy to this. Why? What's the message in that?
I think it's important is, first of all, for the church, historically, and just specifically in terms of the Holocaust, the church has to come to terms with its own complicity in historic anti-Semitism and the Holocaust, when it more or less stood aside and didn't say anything. There was resistance with Bonhoeffer and the Confessing Church, but for the most part, the church was complicit. And so that's a big question the church has to look at very carefully. And then we have to ask this question of ourselves in this generation: when are we ready to step out and defend the rights and the dignity of another people? I think the civil rights movement was one of those places where we did make that turn, and it was a good mix between Jews and Christians, blacks and whites, who took that to the front line under the leadership of Martin Luther King and others. So it's important for us to stay alert and be ready to step out when the need arises.
Each of those groups that found themselves trying to reach out or to speak up, because a lot of Christians were quiet or silent.
Right.
They would be treated like the people that were being identified here. So I think one of the learnings we got from the civil rights movement, when Jews and other groups would help us, they would start to be treated like blacks.
Right.
And I think the same thing here, that we have to understand about oppression, that silence. One of the sayings that was in a consulting group I was, silence is part of the violence. And I think it helps people understand that when they remain silent, that helps to allow certain things to take place. There were a lot of people remaining silent, a lot of intelligent people that understood some things about what was going on that remained silent in the face of this. That's hard for me to understand.
Unfortunately, we're back to that point where we're coming to the end of our show, our segment. We have 2 minutes left, so I just want to kind of open it up and for any kind of last thoughts or last words, or please share, contact information, all of that one more time. Who wants to begin?
We can go in order again,
Okay.
I guess. And I just want to make sure that people are aware of the events that are taking place April 17th at the Rotunda of the Ohio State House. That's the 32nd annual governor's event. The evening of Thursday the 19th at Congregation Tefereth Israel, John Koenigsberg, a Holocaust survivor who's also spoken at the mayor and governor's event, will be speaking. That's at 7:30. And then on the 20th, we will have the mayor's event, the 27th annual City of Columbus Yom HaShoah Observation and Holocaust Remembrance. That's at noon at the City Council chambers.
And open to the public.
Open to the public.
I want to remind everybody again, and as you're talking about the silence and what we're trying to do with our interfaith and our goals of the Holocaust, is to get all this information out. And so to cross lines and support one another. So you can always call me at the Jewish Federation, 559-3226, and I can get you any kind of materials you want.
And anything for you, Skip, real quick?
Well, again, the Kristallnacht commemoration
Okay.
coming up in November with Rabbi Stephen Jacobs from the University of Alabama.
Okay, thank you very much.
critical piece.
This is Diversity in Central Ohio. We'll see you soon.